What will we do with the drunken sailor? What will we do with the drunken sailor? What will we do with the drunken sailor early in the morning? Way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises early in the morning. Shave his belly with a rusty razor, shave his belly with a rusty razor, shave his belly with a rusty razor early in the morning. Way hey and up she rises.
Ahoy mateys, and welcome to the Get to Know World of Warships podcast episode 91. I am your host, Syntax. If you haven't guessed yet, this is our Sea Shanty episode where we will be introducing you to the finest genre of music known to man as we talk about the naval casino game we're as inseparable from as syphilis, to the sailors who first sang these glorious songs on voyages across dangerous seas in centuries past. These tunes will break up the amazing segments we have for you, which include elite gamer and community contributor Maltese Knight discussing Update 0.11.0, revisiting the Naumachia clan who went from the basement of Squall to the top of Typhoon, and a conversation with former co-host Borla about the future of the podcast. So batten down the hatches, mateys. It's a storm of good music and content coming your way on the Get to Know World of Warships podcast.
Put him in the bed with the captain's daughter. Put him in the bed with the captain's daughter early in the morning. Way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises early in the morning. That's what we do with the drunken sailor. That's what we do with the drunken sailor. That's what we do with the drunken sailor early in the morning. Way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises early in the morning. Way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises early in the morning.
Welcome to our update. We've got coming out in a couple of days from when we're recording this, update 0.11.0, and I'm here with my fellow TNG member, Kirmain. Kirmain, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So he's my co-host, and we have a very special guest to talk about this upcoming update. One of the most elite players on North America, a member of one of the most elite clans, and a good friend of mine going back a very long time, Maltese Knight. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. How's it going?
So you're a first-time person. This is the first time you're on the podcast, but you're also an active streamer. Is that right? And we're going to feature a link to your stream down in the description of the podcast. But I seem to remember even way before even clan battles started, you and me and a fellow named Blix rolling around in a division. While I basically spotted stuff so you and Blix could club it all over the map.
That's a long time ago. That's like we're talking like 2016, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
that was like ages ago.
You actually were going by a different name back then, as I recall.
That was my actual name and surname, which I won't disclose right now. But yeah, it was my name and surname.
And
back then.
And you are in fact coming to us from the beautiful island of Malta. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I was privileged to spend some time there. It's beautiful. Not only is the nature beautiful, but the history of that place, going back all the way to some of the earliest Christian religious settlements to World War I and II. It's just an outstanding place. So we're very grateful to have you here. And again, it's one of the better players of the game that I've encountered to talk about the newest update. Now, for the life of us, Are we ever going to see like a 1 point something, or are we forever stuck in beta with this game?
I think where those tanks actually hit 1.0, right? So I think at some point, maybe. I think it's gonna take a while though, for sure. I think super ships and submarines have to come out, and they'll probably add some crazy new thing before that, you know.
Didn't In Tanks 1.0 correspond to a major graphics rework?
I think so. I think they had a big engine change as well, I think.
Well, Yeah, that's right. It was a new engine, so that merited it. So let's talk about the update coming out. I believe it's Thursday, and we're recording this on a Tuesday. And I think the podcast will come out tomorrow, Wednesday. So quite a lot in this new patch. Now, first thing I want to talk about is a new line, the Pan-Asian cruisers. Now, I really like different ships on the Pan-Asian destroyer line. That's the one that I reset most frequently for Research Bureau because it's the one that I find easiest to play to keep reworking because I know those ships so well. They have some strength, certainly some weaknesses, but a lot of like definite strengths, all the way up and down the line. And they've been around for a long time, but finally we're getting cruisers. A simple question: is the new Pan-Asian cruiser line trash or cash?
So I've played them quite a fair amount now. I think these past 2 days I've been playing them on stream a bunch. I really think they're okay. I don't think they're crazy good. I don't think they're bad. I think they're just situational. Like in a situation where someone's pushing into you, they're extremely strong. But when you have to push into someone, it's standard like super light cruiser and it's pretty bad. It's actually extremely bad. It's like playing Venom when someone's running away from you, right?
Right,
So
right. So just to go over the characteristics, they have 100. They have light cruiser guns like 150 somethings, right?
no, they're super light cruiser guns. So they're actually 127 millimeters.
Oof. So so they also have deep water torps.
Yep, they
And-
have 10 aside Yu Yang torps.
Wow, and that's the top tier, has 10 on each side. That's a lot.
10 on each side. I believe even Sejong, the tier 9, has 10 aside, but those are 12-kilometer torps. I mean, that's still pretty good for tier 9.
It is. So those are really good torps. Are they able to stealth torp? What's the concealment like on these boats?
They're the same exact as Yu Yang and Jungmu, the standard. And they also get TRB. So let's say on the tier 10, you get 20 torps, right? 10 per side, Yu Yang. You can actually TRB that and get 40 in a single launch if you wanted to.
That is insane. But what about the ship's concealment?
I believe Jinan can get down to 9.7. So it's pretty good. It's not as good as Austin, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah, it's like better than Zhao. It's approaching like minnow levels. What is there any other gimmick going on with this ship?
It has smokescreen,
That
which
does
is
does it
pretty
have the
good.
destroyer smoke screens?
I believe it has Yu Yang smokescreen. It doesn't have as many as Yu Yang, so it can't lay as much. You have 4, and they run out pretty quickly, so you have to be a bit smart with them. But they're still pretty good.
That's
Like
pretty.
they're good smokes.
That's pretty quick though. I mean, with superintendent, you get 5. Like
You get 4 with superintendent.
oh, 4 with superintendent. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, many other times, at least with the Pan-Asian destroyer line, they basically took other ships that existed, and like the tier 6 is a Russian ship. The tier, I guess 7, the Gajimata, was unique for its time, but the 8, 9, and 10 are basically just clones of American ships. Are these ships models? Are they physically clones of other ships, or are they completely unique?
So some of them are actual clones, such as Jinan, for example, that takes the exact hull and gun layout of Austin, except the reload's different and it has 1 less start. But it has the same 32mm armor on the side, which is pretty good actually for fighting anything less than a Yamato in caliber. Sejong has the same hull as Austin, except a different superstructure. Harbin, which is the tier 8, is a completely new ship, I believe. It's based on some Russian design. The tier 7 is a Flint in design. The tier 6 is a new design. It's like Dido. It's like HMS Dido, which is also a test ship. And I believe Chungking is, I think it's British as well in design. So tier 5 and 6 are British, 7 is American, 8 is Russian, and then 9 and 10 are American.
Now, are these guys, A, do they require IFHE? And B, are they potential like DPM monsters like the Smolensk, or do they not quite have that level of HE spam?
The only one I would say you take IFHE on would be the tier 7, the Chumphon, just because it's like Flint and you can actually pen battleships at that tier. The rest, I don't think is going to help you as much, honestly. It will just grief your fire chance. In terms of DPM, they're okay. I mean, Colbert and Smolensk are still better, but they're better than Austin overall. They have decent DPM. It has a 3.5-second reload. That's for tier 10, so
Okay, so
you can
look,
buff that a bit.
I'm going to ask you, and I guess we're going to make this a sort of a generic Get to Know World of Warships podcast rating scale, of a scale from A to F. A being, I don't know, are you familiar with American grading scales, A, B, C, D, and F?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So A to F in terms of how strong they are in randoms, ranked, and competitive. So in general, the line, and especially the tier 10, randoms.
In randoms, it's kind of 50-50 on how the enemy team plays. Most teams nowadays play a kited game where they're going to sit at longer ranges. So I would say I can't give it more than a C, sadly, just because I would love to give it a B, but I can't give it more than a C just because like half the games you'll have people who are running away from you, and it's going to be really frustrating. Maybe not impossible, but really frustrating.
So wait, but before I go on to the next grading, what's the velocity of these ships? Are they fast or
The actual ship itself or the shell?
the ship?
The ship, I believe they go, let me check. I think they go as fast as Austin, so around 37, 36 knots. They're pretty fast. They're pretty fast.
When you throw a flag on there, you know it's not a slow one, but it's not. There are a lot of sub 30 battleship or sub 35 battleships and cruisers. Maybe you can run them down, but yeah, it's tough when they're running. A to F on ranked. Is this something you're going to want to bring to ranked?
I'd probably bring it for a meme, I guess, just because I want to try it out. I play Yunang in ranked and stuff, and I like it. I like Austin in ranked too. They're not really the best ranked ships, so I'm gonna give it a D. I don't want to give it an F. I'll give it a D, just because you can hold the flank.
So when you bring a Yu Yang to ranked, are you bringing it with a radar or smoke?
Radar and smoke sometimes. I just switch 50-50. I kind of try both and see how it goes. I like both playstyles. They're pretty fun.
And are we going to see this thing in clan battle season or COTS?
I don't think so. I find it really hard to guess these, but looking at Austin, how it really wasn't played, and Colbert and Smolensk. I mean, I don't think this one's gonna be played over Smolensk. So, and
Yep.
Smolensk doesn't get played. So,
No, it does not. No, it does not. Okay, well, the next thing that's coming is maybe a bit of good news for some folks is the removal of submarines out of the game. Is this a good thing or a bad thing, Maltese?
this is a pretty good thing for random players like me, because honestly, I haven't had as hard of a time as a lot of players in terms of submarines. I haven't seen many of them, but whenever you get one and it starts pinging you, even if it doesn't actually hit you, it starts frustrating you and makes you mad. So the removal, giving us a break from that, might be pretty exciting, honestly.
Have they ever actually said, hey, we messed this up so much, we just want to pull it from the game? Because they didn't do that with CVs at any point during the rework. To me, removing it is... That means it's so out of sync and is so frustrated. It's basically a negative on the game. Because if it was net neutral, or they thought, with the CV rework, they kept, they revised it, tweaked, changed things. They continue, the rocket plane change, that change came. It all came in game. But to actually straight remove them, it's in some ways, it looks like a defeat. However, it also looks like, hey, we realize we made a mistake and we're not going to commit to it. We're going to just go ahead and pull it and rethink it. I mean, what's your take on the fundamentally the removal of it versus
I believe
one of the
the
other options?
reason they're removing it, I don't know the official reason, but if I were to guess, I would say it's so they want to test their rental super ships, which is something they're also going to be adding. I think they want to test them in a non-submarine environment first for these 2 patches, and then bring submarines back, because they already listed the changes that they're going to add onto submarines already. So they kind of have a general idea of
What are some of those changes?
I believe I have the link open right now.
Is that the thing where you have a choice of torpedo?
That they already did that, but I believe they're gonna basically straight up buff submarines. I believe, from what I've heard so far, like extra HP, I think less damage from ASWs, stuff like that. I mean, it's just straight up buffs, it seems, to the submarines.
So I guess the other way of looking at it is that the same. We heard this with CVs, is that the measure of success of CVs is not that they're balanced, but that they get a lot of people wanting to play them. So with submarines, they found, hey, look, honestly, I had no interest in playing submarines. They just seem kind of disconnected from the game. And I personally, I dislike games where I found Floridian slip there, where I found submarines, because it basically meant there was 1 less ship or 2 less ships in the game to be an ally or to fight against. It was its own thing, completely segregated, separated. I'd rather have another cruiser or another destroyer or even a battleship, whatever, or even maybe a CV that I can actually shoot with, engage with, because the whole reset of pings using the damage control is just it didn't. I just struggled with it because it. Well, I'm sure I'm not alone. And we have many complaints about.
Yeah. It's
No.
just you're fighting against. Let's say you have a game, right? 2 submarines, a carrier, and like 4 destroyers. You can actually get 5 destroyers, 2 submarines, and a carrier. That's about 8 ships. You cannot shoot at all the time. That's 8 ships you cannot farm. So for good players who want to like stat farm and stuff, it's basically like impossible to play because you're trying to play against 3 cruisers and maybe a battleship or 2. And that I've had games like that. It's just not fun at all. Like you can't even play the game basically.
Yeah, it's sort of like a gimped version of it, and I mean that's not what you want when you hit the battle button. You hinted on something else that's coming, which is super ships to randoms, and I think the mechanism will work the same way it did for rank, where you basically get tokens to play them, right?
I believe so, yeah. It's just the same bundle system. It's free, so.
Yeah, did you engage with super ships much in your ranked battles? What's your take on them?
I honestly don't really like them. The only 2 I like are Annapolis and Zorki. The Yamagiri seems like a worse Shima. The Hanover and Satsuma are pretty much just Yamatos just with some more HP and stuff. Kondi, I mean, people think it's broken. I really don't fear it at all. Annapolis is really strong just because it has a radar, but the rest I don't really care too much about. They seem like tier 10s, honestly.
Yeah, I myself did not get particularly excited about them in ranked, and I'd rather just. I thought there were better ships to play that were not super ships. What effect do you think they're going to have on? Well, I have an idea of what effect they're going to have on random battles, but what effect do you think they're going to have on random battles?
Well, since their stats aren't gonna count, people are probably gonna play them like however they want. But biggest thing is, I guess there's more HP on the board, such as Satsuma and Hanover. That's gonna be the nicest thing, I guess.
I figured that's where you were gonna go with that. Yeah, more damage to farm and more. Hey, what now? Are you actually gonna have to have? Do you actually even need a tier 10 ship to get the tokens to get the tier 10 super ships?
I am actually not sure. I don't think so.
So in theory, somebody who has never quite made it up past tier 6 can get the credits to get a not just any tier 10 ship, but a tier 10 super ship.
I think so.
Exciting times. It reminds me back when they set up the game on like at displays at naval museums, and somebody could just walk up and play it, and suddenly they're dropped in your random battle. They put an end to that, but it just sort of maybe a return to that, which, interesting outcomes, right?
Yeah.
So much to look forward to. Sorry, I don't mean to be cutting or anything. I'm actually kind of interested in this Pan-Asian cruiser line. We're not all negative here. We're not haters. Speaking of something that's quite fascinating to me is a new steel ship, the Incomparable. And when I look at this, it's like, hey, what else can we give it? They gave this thing everything: torpedoes, hydro, speed boost, spotter plane. What am I missing?
So let me tell you what it gets. Let me give you the full layout on what it gets here. Okay, so it gets a speed boost. It gets a hydro, daring hydro, so long duration. It gets a spotter plane. It gets, a super heal, 36,000 HP. It gets overmatch. It has Yamato overmatch. It has same caliber guns as Shikishima and quicker reload than Yamato. It has battle cruiser dispersion, so it's actually pretty accurate. It can go 40 knots because of that speed boost. I think its biggest downside has to be its HP pool, right?
Well, is that its HP pool or its effective HP pool with the super heal?
Well, the maximum HP stock without the super heal is 70,000. So, and its armor plating isn't crazy. Its side armor is pretty good. Its deck armor is pretty good, but the nose armor and back armor, just like Slava, it's 25 millimeters. So you have to be pretty careful with it. Something I forgot to mention about it, which is really crazy actually, it has 10.6 kilometer detection, so it actually outspots the Moine.
That is something else. Kirmain, what you got a question for our guest here?
Yeah, so I was watching you play the Incomparable, and I watched Bogsy play it about a week ago. Maybe
Let's not compare the two. Let's be nice to Boxy here.
I'm
I've had
wondering
some
if,
bad
like,
games in it.
I'm just wondering about its competitive viableness. It seems really, like, I guess focus is going to get messed up. But with that concealment, then maybe
I just think
there's something that
for
could be worth
comp, maybe there's a niche for it, but I don't think that it's gonna like be better than Ohio or Yamato or Conquer. I don't think it does the job because it doesn't like it's too risky to play. It's like playing a Colbert in comp. It's a bit risky, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems to get a lot of nice things like the Hydra and the torpedoes, which it's paying a price for those somewhere else, and those are things that it's not likely to use in comp. You just are not, against a competent team, are ever going to really find a battleship that can, outside of exceptional circumstances, of course, really utilize those tools, plus the very limited range. And, in comp, you're setting up these crossfires, and you really need to be able to blap somebody at, 22 kilometers, and that's just not necessarily workable for the ship, right?
You'd have to run range mod and spotter plane to get up to 22 kilometers because I think its range is 17.6 stock. And then with range mod, it's around the same as Kremlin, so 20.7. But if you want to actually cross map something, I think Shikishima's probably better. Even Yamato's probably better if you want to have the 32 millimeter overmatch as well.
Right. And, I mean, so, again, this is ship that has some really big advantages, but it pays the price. And correct me, is its bow and stern, are they 25 millimeter?
25, just like Slava, yeah.
Whew. So, yeah, it's, well, let's go down the scale here. Random battles, A to F for the for this incredible ship.
A.
Incomparable. A. I feel that
A.
too. I feel like this is a great potato farmer.
It's good because it can really get some big damage. You're gonna have some games where I've had these games where maybe your dispersion isn't gonna be on point and you're gonna get not really great damage. But when the shells hit, they'll do incredible damage. Like with super heavy AP, the alpha is 22,500. So that's a lot.
Would you call the damage incomparable?
Well, it is actually comparable. It's the same as Shikishima. So.
Oh, there you go. Okay, how about ranked?
Well, for ranked, I mean, you can probably have some fun with it, but I don't think it's crazy. I mean, it can be fun, I guess. So I'm gonna give it a C or a B. I would say between those two, maybe C plus.
Okay, and competitive.
I feel like maybe there's gonna be a team that can use it. I find it really hard to always rate things early. Like Napoli, I didn't think it was gonna be good, but this clan season, I played it the entire season. I was like, wow, okay, this thing's actually pretty good. So I'm gonna give it a D.
That's because of the armor, the Napoli.
Yeah, it's literally just armor.
Yeah.
And the concealment.
Well, it's hard things to determine sometimes, but it's funny how competitive really pushes the limits of the game in such a way that things you wouldn't anticipate actually synergize with something else. And I think based on your grading, it seems like the less coordination the enemy team has, the more you can do with this ship. Because this seems like the kind of ship that enemy team has some cooperation, they can really mess you up and cause you trouble. But if the less cooperation there is, you can get away with all kinds of stuff with this thing.
Yeah, you can just send it on a flank with a destroyer. I mean, it has 10-kilometer detection. You can get up really close to, like, you can literally outspot Des Moines, like, or Petro, or Moskva. You just outspot these things, and like you're faster than them too, because you go 40 knots if you're dark. So you can actually just play around these people.
So I guess one last topic for this update is asymmetric battles. Those are coming back, right?
I believe they're coming back. Yeah, I saw something in the patch notes.
Did you place those on the first go round?
I actually didn't, because I didn't really seem interested in different game modes, I guess.
You ever make one of those bets with your friends? Is who do you think would win a fight? Let's say a professional wrestler like a Hulk Hogan, or 20 midgets. It seems like this is sort of the World of Warships version of that. Who would win competition? And I'm kind of curious about it. but I think ultimately the way that game mode works is it'll basically become a torpedo fest. Like the low tiers, you look at 7s and 8s, you basically have an asymmetrical number of destroyers, and that's assuming cooperation or assuming some competence. But I'm just really kind of curious to see how that game mode will play out and what the if anybody even bothers to optimize ships for it, what will dominate.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing on the tier 9 to 10 team, you can literally just play like Des Moines or something, or Petro, and you just win, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know how a tier 7 is supposed to play against like a Des Moines or something.
Yeah.
Kind of hard.
And I'm also not sure like how they split it 7 and 8 versus 9 and 10. And there's a world of difference between a 7 and 8, because 8s play 10s all the time. So I don't know. It's an interesting concept, but what you said about it originally, like you weren't that interested the first go around. There was like a game mode recently too that I can't even remember what it was, but it came and it went. And I was just like, meh. I didn't even give it a shot, and I
was it Arms Race? I don't even know what it was. I think it was Arms Race.
Maybe it was, but it was like its own standalone thing, and I remember seeing it up there, and I was just like, no, I'm either going to do randoms because that's with my 3-man div and just club, or I'm going to play ranked, and that's it. I mean, maybe if they gave some really nice incentives to play that game mode, it might get people into it. And it would be interesting. It's almost like a Halloween game mode or something where you've just got something really novel and different that's kind of fun. I enjoy those. Well, look. Really kind to come and share some of your knowledge with us, your understanding of the upcoming update. Really solid information, by the way, about the Incomparable, about the Pan-Asian line, a cruiser line. I'm looking forward to that one. Well, before we wrap, though, here's an exit question, I guess. What do you think is a better and more fun line to play, the Pan-Asian cruiser line or the Dutch cruiser line?
More fun, Pan-Asian cruiser. I think Dutch cruisers are turbo boring and they're really bad.
So you take away that airstrike gimmick. The Dutch cruisers are just underpowered, not really effective.
I just don't even like the airstrike gimmick. I don't think I can make it work ever. It's just the guns are inconsistent. Like sometimes they're pretty good, but sometimes they're extremely bad. I just don't want to play those things ever.
Yep. Okay. Good. So, and you also sort of answered the other question I guess I meant to ask when you were originally talking about Pan-Asian cruisers. Were they fun to play? And it sounds like they actually are fun, which I think is.
They can be fun. They can be pretty not fun too, depending on how the enemy team plays and deploys.
And those deep water tarps, those are not Asashios. Those are the ones. They're the same as the Pan-Asian lines.
They can hit cruisers. Yes.
Cool. Well, look. Thanks for joining us. So below again, we're going to have a link to your stream. Are you? I'm not going to embarrass you by asking this. You're saying no, but are you a community contributor?
I am a CCS.
Okay, all right. Wouldn't it be odd if I said NS a CC is like, oh, actually, no, no, but he is a legit community contributor. So please support him by subscribing to his stream, and he's also active on YouTube. That link will be available downstairs, and we'll talk to you again real soon. We're happy to have had you on for your first time, the first of many, I hope. Thanks, Maltese.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
There once was a ship that put to sea. The name of the ship was a Billy of Tea. The winds blew up her bow, up down, oh below my bully boys blow. Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. She'd not been 2 weeks from shore when down on her a right whale bore. The captain called all hands and swore he'd take that whale in tow. Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Da 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 da. Before the boat had hit the water, the whale's sail came up and caught her. Hands to the side, harping and fought her when she dived down low. Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. No line was cut, no whale was freed. The captain's mind was not of greed, and he belonged to the whaleman's creed. She took that ship in tow. Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Da 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 da. For 40 days or even more, the lane went slack, then tight once more. All boats were lost, there were only 4, but still that whale did go. Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. As far as I've heard, the fight's still on. The line's not cut and the whale's not gone. The Wellerman makes his regular call to encourage the captain, crew and all. Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go. Soon may the Wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. One day when the tonguing is done, we'll take our leave and go.
So welcome back. I hope you're enjoying our very special music on these breaks. Gentlemen, are sea shanties a great genre of music or the greatest genre of music, in your opinions?
Obviously the greatest of all time.
Yeah, greatest of all time.
Now, before I appear too rude, let me introduce our guests. We actually kind of have a return guest here. These gentlemen, their clan was on episode 35, where we brought in Naumachia. Now, TNG has a very special relationship with Naumachia, because way back in the day, when TNG was an up-and-coming clan, we would get applicants who were very passionate about the game, wanted to get better, wanted to improve, but they just weren't there skill set wise yet. They just didn't bring enough. They didn't have enough tier 10 ships, a good selection, but they really wanted to start. So TNG developed a relationship with a couple of different clans that we called our sister clans, where we would refer these people to these clans as a place to kind of get their feet wet in clan battles and start to develop as players. And at the time, the clans that we looked at were those, when I was identifying the clans we want to consider sister clans, I just looked for clans that were probably, like at the time, maybe around let's say Gale, but they played a lot of clan battles because that's really what these people need, just a lot of time playing clan battles. So I randomly picked Naumachia from the list. I reached out to their leader at the time, Arvinex, and we struck up a relationship where we just refer people over to that clan. And today I am joined for episode, when we started with them on 35, episode 35, we're bringing them back here for episode 91. To talk about the progress of their clan, because when we talked to them last time, they said, look, we are determined to become a competitive clan. We are determined to work our way up the rankings, and we're going to even expand to have like a specialized branch, much as TNG has done, or many other clans have done, that is even more focused on competitive, so you can kind of balance between the competitive interests of people in the broader clan. And they launched something called the Naumachia Gladiators. That clan is abbreviated NOM. The original clan, Naumachia, is -N-. So I am joined today by longtime member of Naumachia, Gurfan, and former Naumachia and now leader of Naumachia Gladiators, Palenko. So Gurfan and Palenko, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So I want to bring you guys back because on episode 35, you said you were going to do something, and then you did it. And it's kind of remarkable to me because it kind of tracks. There are many clans that I think are where you started that want to become more competitive. And, when we first started our relationship with Naumachia, I think it was in season... you guys started in season 2, TNG started in season 3, and it was maybe around season 4 or 5 that we struck up our relationship. I think at the time you guys were just barely getting into Storm, like Storm 3. But over time, you Storm 3, higher Storm 3, Storm 2, then we finally get to season 10, and Naumachia Gladiator breaks out, and they get into Storm 1, high Storm 1. And now we're at this season, and it was kind of bittersweet to me. But I was checking the clan battle records for TNG's, which is the tends to be, although it doesn't necessarily have to be, tends to be the most competitive branch of the new guys. And what do I see but a loss to a clan, Naumachia? Again, bittersweet because I can't help but have a small sense of ownership, I guess, of having been part of what you guys were starting an eternity ago, and just to see you guys come on so strong. And this season too, Naumachia Gladiators finished in Typhoon 1, soon to be knocking on Hurricane's door, and Naumachia in Typhoon 2, a radically different clan than what you guys were all the way back when you first started doing clan battles in Season 2, when you ended up in you actually played a bunch of battles in Season 2, and you ended in Squall Group 1. So, Gerfin, you've been there for the entire time. Reflecting on this, what's your reaction?
Shock. I mean, it's been a heck of a ride to get in here. But, I mean, it's been a lot of work. And it's been a lot of work. I'm just amazed that it's gone as far as it has. I really have.
Now, in typical clan battle seasons, I've taken a look this time. There were approximately, at least on the North American server, over 800 clans that participated in clan battles. And I think what would your ranking have been overall in North America for Naumachia Gladiators in Typhoon 1? It's got to be like a top 30, top 20 finish.
We're exactly place 30 right now.
Yep. So just think about that, going from basically you're in the 800s, and it's still sort of the same culture, the same line. It's not like somebody you all left the game and somebody else took the name. It's basically the same culture, the same lineage, the same leadership, right? Gerfin, you're still there, and Arvenix was our guest last time, and
yes,
so
same leadership.
What were the changes you guys made that allowed you to do what you've done?
Well, have the changes been? I have broadened our officers. I mean, that was a lot of our problem at the beginning. We just kept it between me and Arv, and then we've just slowly opened it up and gotten different intakes from different people, and it's just been growing ever since.
So, now, Polenka, you've been the leader of the competitive group, Gladiators, from the beginning. That's right.
No.
Okay.
I just recently, about, what was it, about 4 or 5 months ago, Gerf, when I took over from Mobius. Mobius and I have basically been helming Nom since season 11.
Right, and I think you played your first clan battles in season 10, but you've been, I guess, what season did you join Gladiators?
Just before season 11 is when I joined the Gladiators.
What made you decide to join that clan?
I was part of another small competitive, trying to be an up-and-coming competitive clan at the time, and since Nam and it was called King Neptune's Order of the Golden Shellback was the clan name of the other clan. We were both small, barely able to field a team at the time, so we decided to merge together, and that's when I became part of Nam.
As the leader of the more competitive branch, what steps did you take to get your people in order? Because I know this last season was season that goes by so fast. Season 15. So over the past 4 seasons, where you've had a hand in leadership over there, what decisions have you made that you think brought you the most success?
Trying to be more open to our players suggesting strategies, different things we can do. And the thing itself, also trusting players for making plays within the game itself. And honestly, trying to breed a culture and environment even while we're in a competitive setting during the season and in match to try and keep things looser so we don't tense up. because I'm explaining this horribly. Basically, trying to make it so we don't tense up if the night's not going as well as we would like. So we're not killing ourselves.
You can withstand, because all clans have those nights where it's difficult, and sometimes those nights break the clan, and sometimes those nights make the clan stronger. What would you think would, in your time with the clan, what would you describe as the sort of the most difficult period?
The most difficult period?
Mm-hmm. Like, what was the biggest challenge that came up while you were, at the helm of this up and coming, fast improving clan?
Trying to keep people from going down each other's throats at times.
Yeah, sometimes things get a little heated at times, eh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
egos get involved, people start arguing, and next thing you know, you're trying to keep the clan from splitting down the middle.
What was your best way to address that when tensions and tempers started running hot?
I'd pull them aside, and basically, I'd try and let them handle it on their own. If I saw things were getting out of hand, I'd pull the two parties together privately and force a hashing out.
Sounds like a very mature way of handling difficulties, and it's you could kind of call it the competitive conundrum. Is that there's a high coincidence of skill and tendencies towards asshole behavior in this game.
Yeah.
Like, if you just want to have a group of guys that totally get along great, never fight or whatever, yeah, it's very easy as long as you don't care about how many clan battle games you win or lose. When you start to care, you notice your recruitment starts to bring in folks that are very talented but often have, character defects which clash with other people's character defects, and suddenly things go a little bit haywire. Speaking of which, I guess I'll throw this one back at Gerfin. It's your membership probably changed quite a lot over the last. Your clan is actually older than the new guys, and I can tell you that none of the people other than myself that were with the new guys at the start are still with it. In fact, I think it may have been the second oldest person with the new guys joined a year after we started. But obviously, there's a big focus on recruitment. What recruitment strategy did you bring to Naumachia that helped you guys succeed and get to where you are?
Strategy-wise, actually, that really didn't kick in with us until Nom was created. With the strategies, before we were we were allies with TNG and a few other clans, and that's the way we were doing our recruiting beforehand. And it was just training people, helping people, and it just went from there. Beyond that, and then after the first podcast that ARP had, our recruiting jumped up a lot, and it probably will again. But it's just getting our name out there, for one.
Well, I'd say that you definitely, having your name, being in finishing Typhoon 1, that's actually pretty reputable, and that should be a pretty good magnet. I guess I'll turn this question back to Polanco. Season 16, already been announced. Exact same template of the previous season. Maybe just some different ships, like this new British battleship that's about to come out for Steel, shortly. I'm not sure if we're gonna find its way into competitive. Who knows? But what's your ambition for season 16? Are we gonna see Naumachian gladiators in purple?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask that. We're going to make as big of a push as we can and see where we fall. I'm not going to make it a make or break for Hurricane, but that is a personal goal of mine, is to get into Hurricane, but I'm not going to be disappointed if we get back into Typhoon 1 again, and that's as far as we can get.
So, I just want to get your opinion, though. What do you think about the most recent rule set for the last clan battle season, again, that in 15 that we're going to see again in 16, where it's tier 10, no carriers, up to 2 battleships, and none of the same ship, so only one of each ship.
Thank God is my only response to that.
I agree with that.
I
About
about
time.
killed myself on the season 11 and season what was it 13? 11 and 13, because I believe 12 was the tier 9 season, playing carriers. I don't like playing carriers. I'm good at them, but I hate them. And I don't have to play a carrier for that, so I'm just ecstatic.
So do you think that the lack of carriers would have a bigger impact or lesser impact than forcing you to only be able to bring one ship of each type rather than, say, I don't know, 7 Venezias?
I'd say they both those rules definitely help. The carriers and them just in and of themselves are a massive force multiplier, but also restricting it to one of each class, one ship of only one, a maximum of one ship of each of whatever ship hull you are looking at. That is a major balance change too, because you can't just spam a bunch of French TDs at somebody.
Right, right. That was one of the other forms of cancer we've seen over recent seasons, isn't it?
Tier 9, yes.
So outside of clan battles, are you guys active participants in the King of the Seas competition?
Yes, in COTS 13, the team we fielded finished in the top 12 in North America.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable. Is that and I'm sure you've done it in past seasons. Is that also a high watermark for you?
Yes, the last 2 times we fielded a team for it, we didn't make it past the first round of the qualifiers the first time we tried, and then we just missed the playoffs in 12. But then we got like a rocket up the playoffs.
So let me ask you both. I'm going to ask you both the same question. Get your take on this. But let's say there's another clan out there that is kind of bumping into, just maybe barely crossing the threshold into Storm, and they want to get that sea green or even, dare I say it, maybe even purple tags. What one piece of advice would you give them, Gurfan, to help them achieve that?
Just keep on. You will get there. You get the right people together, and just keep working at it, and you will achieve it.
Solid advice. Palenka, what one piece of advice would you share with such a clan?
I'd say keep your chin up, keep learning, and motor on. And see where you get.
All right, solid advice, gentlemen. I really appreciate you having you on the show. I really appreciate you guys coming and continue to do remarkable stuff with Naumachia. And just so, in case people are not aware, the name Naumachia is actually, to me, fascinating when I've heard of it. And we've all seen the film Gladiator. What is Naumachia relative to that? Which one of you wants to take that question and help educate our audience?
I can take that, Gurf, if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, pal.
All right, Naumachia is what they used to call the performance in the Colosseum when they would do naval warfare gladiatorial fights.
So they would literally fill the Colosseum base area with water and put boats on it.
Yep, and stage gladiatorial fights on them.
That is amazing. That is just conceptually in my mind, like, because we always picture, the chariots and that scene in Gladiator where they rip, the slaves are all kind of bundled up together and basically take out the gladiators on the soldiers on the horseback. But to imagine, that would have been a wonderful scene in that film, or in any film, honestly. I'd love to see something like that recreated. Maybe we'll see it someday. So listen, anybody that's interested in learning more about your clan, we're going to have your Discord listed in the description below. And I encourage you to check them out if you are looking for a competitive clan led by these very cool gentlemen. And look, guys, I wish you the best of luck in the next King of the Season. Wish you the best of luck in Season 16. Hope to see you out there on the battlefield. So again, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Yep, thanks.
Well, here we are, we're back again, safe upon the shore. In Belfast town we'd like to stay and go to sea no more. We'll go into a public house and drink till we're content. For the lassies they will love us till our money is all spent. So pass the flowing bowl, boys, there's whiskey in the jar, and we'll drink to all the lassies and the jolly roving tar. Oh Johnny, did you miss me when the nights were long and cold? Or did you find another love in your arms to hold? Says he, I thought of only you while on the sea afar. So come up the stairs and cuddle with your jolly roving tar. So pass the flowing bowl, boys, there's whiskey in the jar, and we'll drink to all the lassies and the jolly roving tar. Well, in each other's arms they rolled till the break of day. When the sailor rose and said farewell, I must be on me way. Ah, don't you leave me, Johnny lad, I thought you'd marry me. Says he, I can't get married, for I'm married to the sea. So pass the flowing bowl, boys, there's whiskey in the jar, and we'll drink to all the lassies and the jolly roving tar. Come all ye bonny lassies now, a warning take by me, and never trust an Irishman an inch above your knee. He'll tease you and he'll please you, but when he's had his fun, he'll leave you in the morning with a daughter or a son. So pass the flowing bowl, boys, there's whiskey in the jar, and we'll drink to all the lassies and the jolly roving tar. So pass the flowing bowl, boys, there's whiskey in the jar, and we'll drink to all the lassies and the jolly roving tar.
So this is Borla, and I am here with Synpax.
Hey.
Synpax, I noticed something new happened with the podcast about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what to do with it, but I've got some ideas that are. I figured out idea-wise a couple things I want to work with, and there's some other things that I still haven't quite figured out how to do. But I guess it's a new chapter as we march onward towards 100 episodes.
Yeah, as we've talked about a few times on the podcast, from the very beginning, I was a big fan, and I thought it was very interesting the way you and Bogsy went through different clans and groups and some really, really unique and fun segments of the population. Some of them were competitive, a lot of them were not, focused around, a very specific hobby or secondary thing that tied groups together, and I thought you guys did a nice job of telling stories about the groups. As time went on, there was a lot more competitive discussion around people who were in COTS, some of the clans that were more competitive, and then some changes happened with you where you weren't able to continue on the podcast, and Bogsy did it on his own a few times, had me guest host a few times. He was kind enough to extend an offer to me to be able to co-host, and so he and I did a lot of podcasts together. Full disclosure, he did all of the work. I just showed up for the podcast and had stuff to say. He, lined up almost all of the guests and came up with the majority of the ideas, and we had a fun time going through that. And then we all know Bogsy went to Wargaming, so he and I talked about it. We weren't able to do the podcast in the same manner that we were doing before, and we're drawing it to a conclusion. And he asked about having you on for what was going to be he and I's last episode, and I thought that was a great idea. And then you had a comment partway through the end of that podcast, huh?
Yeah.
Didn't want it to end?
Well, it's not like I have a hell of a lot more time than I've did in the past, but it just seems like it was always such a fun project. And it was in the early days, especially with Boggs, when we were still figuring things out. And I seemed to, at the time, have an unlimited amount of time to futz around with this stuff. And I kind of think I've got an idea of how to operate it moving forward. Because in the past, typically each episode was wholly contained on one subject matter, one guest, one clan, because the name of the podcast was originally Get to Know World Warships Clan, because that was sort of the focus of just the anthropological study of different cultures within the game and how they all are kind of different, and that sort of always interested me. But then we kind of broadened it out because there was no, at the time, general podcast for World of Warships that was quite doing what we were trying to do. I think there were some attempts here or there, and truly a media that is all about the medium of audio only, that did not require you to watch something, but to only listen, so you could enjoy it as you mowed your lawn or cleaned the gutters or were on a long drive, perhaps. So, but I think that, I want to retain that, but I think that what we're probably going to do is start building these episodes out to be segment-based. So each episode is a meaty couple of segments and may have greater length than they did in the past, but I think the last episode was a potential model for how I would like that to work, where we had maybe 3 or 4 segments and introducing like recurring segments. Like, for example, weird premiums, where there's just a lot of weird premiums in this game, and we just take a moment to stop and appreciate them, look back at them, and many of them have been forgotten. Some of them maybe should be forgotten, and shed some light on that. But I think that there's probably going to be a mix of things. One is the news stuff, right? So having segments in each episode that are about, say, a discussion of the patch with some, high-profile player who really understands the game well, and say, okay, this wall of text of patch notes, what among it do we really need to know? Along with just the stuff you got to listen to, like that one really out there clan leader who we get to have a discussion with, or that player that's done, 50,000 ranked battles, that's, maybe known for saltiness, or just sort of that kind of compelling stuff, along with, occasionally pulling in, some of the stuff from the competitive side, like, hey, you guys win COTS or clan battle season or something like that, talk to us about how you did it. So sort of a mix of those things, but always but really just to be as compelling and as interesting as possible, and maybe just a little bit indulgent at times, because if it's not holding my interest, I just can't do it.
So what I heard in unpacking that answer is that at some point you're going to invite me back to talk about the Mikasa. At some point.
Oh, yeah.
Mikasa.
Oh, that's a
the
dandy
premium. Yeah. And that is, that was one of the boats back when you used to get flags for achievements. Kind of the joke in KSC, and it would joke on several episodes of the podcast, was I wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, turn on Warships, and play a Mikasa game, and get one Mikasa game and farm 120 to 160 flags and go about the rest of my day. So I got some interesting and fun stuff for you if you want to talk about Mikasa sometime.
Yeah.
But then also it sounds like JFK or Angry Turtle is on the radar if someday they'll come out of hiding and talk about their ranked experience.
I mean, that's the thing. Even going back to the very first episode, and this is a very indulgent segment because this is a segment on the podcast about the podcast. So we started this whole thing with the leader of 90th. And if you know anything about 90th, and you see there's an episode where we actually talk to them and ask them questions and interact, how can you not want to listen to that, right? It's that can't miss stuff. So finding those sort of angles that make you want to listen to the podcast because you just can't resist it, like rubbernecking a traffic accident. That's the kind of stuff I'm always keeping my eyes out for, just for those man bites dog angles and stories within the game of World of Warships, because there's a lot of what we're aiming to do with this podcast, all that was done on the podcast, it's not really about World of Warships. It's really about the people who play it, and you could almost substitute any game that people get obsessive about heck, even real world sports that are amateur, like Darkon, LARPing, or Civil War reenactment, or I don't know what games are popular with the kids these days. What do they like? Pokemon?
Tetris, I think.
Tetris.
That's the new thing.
Yeah, or the fighting games. I know that those are really where people get together in these shady back rooms and plug in and play Street Fighter and anyway, it doesn't really matter what the game is. It's still got a magnet for really weird and interesting people, and I think that can be pretty compelling. Along with again, the technical stuff. Hey, there's a new patch out. Should I reset my captain? Do I need to sell my gross curve first, or do I not sell my gross curve first? That kind of stuff, that'll always be a part of the podcast. So, and when you have an episode that's maybe 3 or 4 segments and it's topping out at maybe an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours, it gives you time to digest it. And if there's a segment that's not that interesting to you, just skip to the next one. It's not hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah, and one of the things that Boggsy and I talked about, and I thought about as I listened to this most recent episode, is who is the audience? Who are we trying to talk to? What's the content they're going to want? What's going to be valuable to them, and what's going to get them to keep coming back? And I think you struck on something with your comment just a second ago. It's not about the game for some of us, right? We're aiming, or you're aiming, all of us have been aiming at the group of people involved in this game for the community. There's games that we play just for the game, or because we're hanging out with 1 or 2 buddies who like the game. But it's probably safe to assume that most people who regularly listen to the podcast are people who are engaged. We're the 5 or 7 or 10% of the community that interacts with other people in the community and really finds it interesting to see what's going on with various clans or personalities, people who work for Wargaming as individuals, or people who are Twitch streamers, that sort of thing. And the balance between covering the news and the technical aspect and covering the social portion, I think, is really going to determine who your audience is, whether you lean one way or the other.
I guess so.
People still want to come back for it.
Well,
right?
true, and I think that part of the so originally, part of the goal, and these were cross purposes, was partially to help promote TNG, the clan, but also
not you, Simpat. I find that shocking.
Well, imagine that.
You would have some ulterior motive to promote TNG.
Well, it wasn't ulterior.
So unlike
I would call it ulterior. It was just, but however, as much granted that we bring clans on to tell us how great they are and why people should join them, it wasn't over the top Starship Troopers tier Robert Heinlein propaganda TNG. It was like, hey, by the way, there's this clan TNG, join our Discord server, whatever. Not a hard sell at all, especially given that we did so much to promote a lot of other clans. And honestly, I think there were a lot of clans that were doing some cool stuff or had some interesting cultures that got a lot out of being on the Discord, or I think it helped. And also, I mean, even in terms of not even recruitment, but just sort of giving them an opportunity for the benefit of their own members to have, a real discussion with the folks who founded it, to sort of build that in sort of it's basically, if your clan did an episode, you've created a element of institutional knowledge, a portable, permanent institutional knowledge history of your clan, because the founders got interviewed. And I think that strengthens the clan, because anybody who's in the clan can listen to that and say, oh yeah, and I remember why I'm here. This, I didn't really know why this was this way, and I'm kind of glad. And it sort of makes the clan more than it might have just been had that documentation through the podcast not happen. Still, you're talking about, the podcast, serving the community, etc. And to some extent, I mean, at the time, Boggsy was, I think, an aspiring streamer, and it helps to have a broad appeal, to reach certain audiences. And I think that was partially some of his motivation in doing and growing the podcast, because you gotta, and this was, I think he was aspiring to make a living out of it, which is a very difficult job, and anything you can do to help that, I was very supportive of him being a streamer. I thought he was actually, not to offend anybody, but he was probably my favorite streamer, and probably for me at least the easiest one to watch. I always have him on in the background. I don't know if he still streams or not. I haven't watched in a while, but I don't, because he's with Wargaming, so it's, I guess, less of a priority. He kind of graduated, I guess. He graduated from streamer to working for the company that you're streaming about. So I think that there was sort of a need to serve something else. For example, either recruiting for TNG or, helping promote the stream that, the host is doing. And I think you had more of an altruistic approach to it in your involvement, or maybe just personal interest. Probably both, right? But now, I mean, look, fundamentally, it's got to be interesting to me personally, and hopefully there are enough people that have an alignment of what I think is interesting to continue to listen to the podcast. And again, maybe a segment doesn't do it for you, but you want to skip forward and listen to another segment. Or, we talked to you about how to play in the last episode, Hayate. Well, that's kind of interesting to you. Hearing about some guy that played 60,000 co-op battles. Well, maybe after listening to that segment, you felt like you played 60,000 co-op battles. So I think the segments just sort of allow people to find more of what they like. But if they listen to it all the way through, well, God bless them.
Yeah, and to start back at the beginning, I think of your answer, the clans who presented themselves well absolutely then had a commercial for their clan after they were on the episode. I know after we had the episode, I think we were 8th or 12th or something on your list when you and Boggsy interviewed Torino and I. Dozens of people, when they came to our group and were having recruiting chats, I sent them a link and I said, here, you want to listen to how we do things or get an understanding of what our culture's like or what I'm like or Torino's like, go listen to this and you'll have a good idea. Over time, in the last 6 or 8 months, I would still send them that link and say, that information's a year and a half old, but all the things we said we were going to do, that's what we've done. And you can look back and see, get an idea of what our goals were and how we've reached them. So it's absolutely was a good thing for the people who represented themselves well. I think there was a few people, it kind of would have had the opposite effect. I don't think those people even realized they were self-aware enough, but and then as far as Boggsy and his streaming, he doesn't stream much anymore. I've seen him pop on a couple times, obviously with his job and some of the travel he's had with his job that hasn't really been conducive to a regular schedule. But like you, he was I don't watch a lot of Twitch streams. I never have. There's a couple that I'll watch every now and then, and I would put him on in the background or while I was doing other things, or sometimes just hang out and listen to him while I was playing boats or whatever. And I thought he was very enjoyable because it was a nice mix of entertainment and knowledge. It wasn't hardcore one or the other. He wasn't somebody who was angry or yelling all the time. It was kind of more my speed of what I look for. And then as far as the podcast, I do think the segments are a good idea if you're going to have the podcast be of any substantial length for all the reasons that you talked about. There was a pretty wide variety on the last episode. There were 1 or 2 that caught my attention more than others. I did listen to it all, but it also, for a podcast that was almost 2 hours, it's a way to break it up, having the different segments and know that, hey, I read a lot. So when I am reading before I go to bed, I look ahead and say, hey, how many pages left in this chapter? Am I going to finish the chapter before I go to bed? Okay, that's a good stopping point. I think episodes on a podcast are decent for that. If I typically listen when I go take my dog for a walk. I don't know, Simplex, how many episodes you listen to, but I have a dog that's bigger than Boggsy, so I have to take him for a walk most days, and so I'll listen to a podcast, and the ones that have segments, that's what I do. I look at my walk and how much time I have, and say, okay, I'll shorten or lengthen my walk a little bit to match this, and people do that. My hope is that you continue to have success with the podcast because I think it's good for the community.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And production-wise, it'll take a minute to get things sort of up to speed. Quality in terms of audio production, quality in terms of the segment, my interview skills, figuring out exactly how to do the interviews. Because the thing is, if it's segment-based, I don't need to be involved with every segment. I can just, if somebody who is interested in doing a segment on a particular topic, and they do a recording, and they pitch the idea, say, oh, that's pretty cool, yeah, go ahead and do that segment. They send it. I can drop it in there if it's quality. I don't need to be on every single segment. In fact, in theory, I could just open or close it. It doesn't have to be as intensively involving me. So there's just a lot of different ways to go with it. I'm still trying to figure that out. And there's a couple ideas that I have in my mind that seem like they'd work great, but making them work practically, I can't figure out how to do it. So one thing, let me take you back a bit. A few years ago, I hosted a Super Bowl party. And I wanted it to be different. And to make it different, I said it was going to be a radio-only Super Bowl party. So televisions were banned, screens were banned. We had the play-by-play radio producers, or radio, I guess, producers or commentators playing. And, really good food, phenomenal food, really high turnout for the event. And people, especially towards the end, because it was a very close Super Bowl that year, having everybody sitting around the radio the last couple plays of the game and using that theater of the mind, it was a very intense and different experience. Obviously, it's not for everybody. In fact, somebody invited someone to this party, not telling them what it was, and like halfway through it, he's like, so where's the TV? I said, oh, my friend. He was out of there in like 5 minutes. It's like, oh, you got to be kidding me, right? Nope. So that kind of experiment, and I'd love to do a Super Bowl party like that again. I'd love to, because if you think about historically with Super Bowl, I guess, I don't know if television predates the Super Bowls, but certainly baseball, where you'd have folks huddled around the radio listening to the World Series. That's an experience you don't really get anymore, but it's just as real and visceral, and I think in some ways superior, because again, you're just tapping into that theater of the mind, which I think is far more powerful than looking at some 72-inch flat screen, in my mind, in the way that it engages you. So what I wanted to do was try to figure out how to do like replays of clan battle games, where it's just commentary of the game, how play-by-play. So you'd have like a play-by-play guy, and then I guess the color commentator sort of together watching the game together. But I just okay, here, hey, we have a game between TNG and KSC, play-by-play, we're just going to go through it. And but just the mechanics of the game make that almost impossible, because you'd need a replay from both teams, and you'd need to play them both at the same time, because the only way that play-by-play really would work in this game is in a training room in spectator mode, where you can see everything. But I don't know how. You basically have to get two teams willing to do that just so you can do the play-by-play and record it. It's not even live. So, but that's sort of I want to push into more experimental segments like that, the kind of push into the things that you can really only do with this format, but have never really been done with this format.
I think doing a play-by-play description of a Clan Battles game is a lofty goal. I'm a sports guy, right? Like I talked to Boggsy quite a bit, and I think I might have mentioned to you, I've listened to a lot of talk radio, mostly sports talk radio, but not the hot take current news. More like if people are familiar with Ryan Russillo or people like that go into a lot of different different subjects, kind of secondary to sports along the way, and are good storytellers. Baseball is good on radio, I feel like, because the action is fairly static except for a few specific, almost one-on-one matchups, right? It's a pitch and the hitter, somebody trying to steal a base or catch a fly ball or line drive, turn a double play, that sort of thing. There's one piece of action at a time. When you get to basketball, and even more so football, I think it's challenging to completely convey what's going on to the listeners where all the action is. And I would say Warships is probably like that, because even in football, there's only one ball, or basketball, there's only one ball.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
warships. You know, if you have, depending on the season, 7, 8, 9 boats at one time, that's a difficult thing to be able to master through just describing it.
Well, I want to give it a shot
challenge.
if I can figure out how to do it. And you're right, but even how often have we watched like a live stream of a game of COTS where you've got two commentators and they're focused on one side of the map. They're focused on one side of the map, and then like 3 ships die on the other side of the map. They had no idea, weren't paying any attention to it at all, because it's basically it is an intense 3-ring circus. But I don't know. It's something I want to try. Hey, maybe it will fail and fail miserably. But remember, the fundamental rule of the podcast is we can do whatever we want. So that's sort of one of the ideas that have kind of been bouncing around, along with the idea of just having bringing in segments that are basically correspondent submitted segments.
That's a good. I like that idea. I have a few thoughts in the back of my mind when you said that about segments to do, and they're ones that I do think people could pre-record or have the conversation on their own. I also think that would help some of the listeners realize the amount of work that goes into this behind the scenes. I made a comment a few minutes ago about how Boggsy did all of the work, and when I listened to the first episode that you did when you came back, the intros and outros of the music and all of that commentary to line up not just what you're going to talk about, but when you have guests, to coordinate the schedules and to be able to immediately have some kind of rapport or chemistry with the person you're talking with. It's a lot more difficult than just showing up for 45 minutes or an hour a week and, hey, I want to talk about this, and just doing it.
Yeah, I totally didn't phone that last episode in.
But I do think people don't realize the amount of work that goes into the production and scheduling and coming up with reasonable segments. And then also when you're having somebody else, you interviewed a couple different people last episode to be able to, 3, I think, to have them come on. Plus you had Popcorn, I think, co-host a little bit. So you're coordinating 5 different people's schedules, and with different segments, you don't have to record them all at the same time, but that's still there's a lot of housekeeping that goes into all that.
Sure. And I'll tell you the hardest, not that any of it is hard, let's be honest with our audience here. We're talking about a video game, but I think the challenging part is just to find interesting ideas, because some of the ideas, hey, it's patch week, let's talk about the patch, versus coming up with something that's actually kind of a compelling or clever idea for a segment that you really want to listen to or that you really want to record. That's part of the challenge, and I that's probably the hardest part of it, is just finding interesting stuff or thinking of interesting ideas. And there's a lot of ideas, and I don't know, I think actually 1 or 2 of the ideas that we had on the drawing board before I left were you actually guys ended up doing. I'm sure you guys had your own ideas where they just stayed on the drawing board because you didn't quite get the right pieces together to make them happen. But a lot of ideas that we have just never materialized because we just couldn't pull it together. But there are a lot of just coming up with those ideas. That's always something that's really the hard part, I think, because some folks are natural conversationalists, or they've got a natural ways to be provocative with a guest that otherwise might be incredibly boring, to kind of get it interesting, or ways to pick it. I guess the one thing I always try to do with clans is try to pick at scabs. Because because if you don't pick at scabs, a lot of these clans are pretty much the same. They're kind of boring. But then you hear somebody mention something, you say, "Oh yeah," and that kind of got handled, and then we, they're not with us anymore, and we did something. It's like, wait, whoa, hold on, and then you go pick at the scab a little bit.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. Yeah, we want to hear about that. What do you mean, treasury drama? Treasury drama was some of the best. Man, I swear I
remember that early on. Yeah, somebody left with coal or something. Yeah. Or handed out coal to people that they weren't supposed to.
The moment Wargaming announced the treasuries, I knew it was, man, this is just going to be a source of friction within clans. Wargaming put it in here just to cause problems with clans because, how do you handle it? How do it just invites conflict and fights, or different perspectives, and it's who deserves what. How do you exactly measure that? Is because there's never really going to be a solution that satisfies everybody 100%. And then there's that chance, the fact that I guess it's a little bit like Eve, in that if you give somebody the ability to tap into that treasury and they just take it all and leave, Wargaming doesn't care. It's not like they're going to go back and get you your stuff.
You gave them the authority to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, or let's say there's a certain set of rules, right? How the clan agreed to distribute the resources. Well, the clan leader's very good friend is just 1,000 steel away from getting a bourgeon. And suddenly 1,000 steel gets allocated to the clan leader's very good friend, which is completely contrary to the rules. Well, now what? I mean, there's just, but anyway, what I'm getting at is that with finding the scabs to pick at, either with people individually or with, and it's not really to torture them or cause anybody pain. In fact,
entertaining content.
Well, yes, that's true, but it's not. We're not turning into Springer here. It's in some ways, I think that honestly, talking some of this stuff out that they kind of had buried kind of brings it some resolution and gives them a little bit of perspective that the situation wasn't so bad to begin with. But also serves as a lesson or warning to others to avoid making, say, the same mistakes that could cause that drama in the first place.
Yeah, I made the same prediction when the Treasury came in, and so we put some pretty firm policies in place of how we were going to do it, and we basically always hand that stuff out as rewards for volunteers who support scouting and scrims for COTS and other competitive. So
sure. That's one way to handle it.
Yeah,
but then you're going to get the guy that played 300 clan battles, all the ones up to Hurricane, and that's basically what that steel is directly related to. You didn't earn the steel from organizing COTS or for finding scrim partners. You got that steel for bleeding out 16 hours a week of clan battles, and there's going to be that one person who says, damn it, I don't have time to go volunteer for COTS because I'm playing 16 hours a week getting us to the top of the leaderboard. Where the hell is my steel? I'm not saying that's you specifically, but you see how it invites.
Most places that would somewhere, could somehow be an issue. We've been fortunate not to, because we put that in place. Everybody knew when they sign up to play their 16 hours of clan battles, they know that's where the reward's going.
Sure. Sure.
We made one exception that was also COTS related long ago that everybody agreed to at the time. So
true.
It's been a consistent thing. So then, hey, you want Simpacts, you're not on our COTS team, but you want a bunch of coal or steel. How about you show up for and then we just log who was there and pay them out.
Sure. I think you try to avoid conflicts by making sure people understand that, hey, this is the deal going in, this is how it gets distributed. Nonetheless, human nature does not always necessarily abide by those rules. You may have been fortunate involved in evading it, which is good, but other clans, it's just a kind of a nuisance. And I mean, I think I've come across other clans who just pretend like it doesn't exist and just ignores it, so it doesn't, it doesn't introduce conflict at all. Nonetheless, a lot of opportunities in clans for conflicts, which makes for good podcasts. And I think it was Dostoevsky who said that all strong competitive clans are alike. It's only the less competitive clans that are unique in their own uncompetitive ways. I know I'm really butchering a very famous line from literature, but that it just comes down to the reality that to be a competitive clan, you end up doing a lot of the same things that other competitive clans do. It's just because there's really one way, with small variants, practices of how you. But then, once you remove the polarizing force of competitiveness, then clans can sort of operate however the hell they want to, according to whatever rules, and that creates all kinds of delightful conflicts, which is great for podcasts. It's
essentially the same as playing a ship, right? Like, almost everybody who plays at Des Moines plays it the same way, but there's that one guy who plays Lighthouse Des Moines with
one guy
plane, and the minority that excel.
Oh, you
Yeah, I
mean?
think
Oh, yeah. I hear
You know, it's the same way with the clans. It's generally speaking, if you're going to be competitive, there's one good and right way to do it, and then there's just min-maxing all of those different levers that you have to.
But then there's like, hey, why would you waste a camo? Those things are valuable. That Des Moines player seems to find his way into all my rank battles on my team.
Yeah, or why save your debt flags for ranked and clan battles?
Yep, those are expensive. So there's all kinds of things, all kinds of directions to go with the podcast. That's sort of the, not to feel locked in, just to feel like it's ultimately a creative medium. And I guess the pitch is that if you have an idea, something cool you think would be a cool podcast element, one of the things, you should send me, when I finish thought, send an email to synpax@hotmail.com. And, or if you want to do a segment that you've got, pitch it to me first, please. Don't want you to record something and then get it rejected. Not the New Yorker here. Maybe we can drop it onto the show and build up, a stable of correspondence, just like, I don't know, some of the more serious podcasts out there with their serious microphones over at NPR and that tone. You know that NPR tone of their podcast?
I don't listen to NPR a lot, but I know what you're talking about.
I don't either, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, so we're not gonna. It doesn't have to be like that, but I do know that that a lot of podcasts out there, they do build it around segments, and I also like kind of playing a little bit with music too. I think this episode, why not? I think this episode we're actually doing Sea Shanties. Are you not a fan of
Sea Shanties?
Are you not a fan of Sea Shanties?
I don't know that I have any memorized. I have an idea in my head of what you're talking about. It's probably a bunch of drunk. I picture like Englishmen singing songs.
It is the finest form of audio expression. I really see this is the real mission of the podcast, is bringing about sea shanty appreciation. These songs, they're so rich, the history of them, the beauty of them, and honestly,
it sounds like you're pitching a segment.
Oh yeah, actually we probably could do a segment on sea shanties with, and what first put sea shanties on my radar was the OPG. What was the thing we used before Discord?
TeamSpeak.
That's it, TeamSpeak. So on the channel you just default into, they basically played sea shanties. And honestly, lately I've had a lot of long drives, been on the road a lot, and when I'm in the car, I don't know. This year I have to go back and check, but I think I've been on over 100 flights. And always there's a rental car at the end, and obviously a drive of some kind, So I listen in the car because everything works with Android Auto, I think. So you just plug it in. It's the best thing ever. Anyway, but I have them to start playing, and you sing along with them. And sea shanties. Look, if honestly, I troll a hell of a lot on this podcast, but I'm not trolling. These things, they're just magnificent. They're absolutely magnificent, and so hopefully maybe we, with this podcast, using it as bumper music and maybe a segment to talk a little bit about the history of sea shanties, it'll help increase people's appreciation of it. But listen, I don't know if you are on the road a lot. Listen to like a sea shanties channel, and I will actually tell you 3 sea shanties to try to listen to. One is Bones in the Ocean. That's a very somber one. I challenge you to listen to it without finding a tear in your eye. Another one is called The Tempest, which I think is a little bit more modern. And then I guess one that really gets your spirits going would be the Jolly Rover Tar. So these are, it's not just drunk Irish or Englishmen singing about, banging maidens at the maidens, quote unquote, at the dive bar at the port. It's like some of these songs are very compelling. The compositions and the execution of the people recording them these days, they try to professionalize it, but they have deep roots, and it is World of Warships adjacent. So we got to keep the tie in there somehow. So yeah, I think all the bumper music on this episode is going to be some of my favorite sea shanties, and next time you're on the road, man, give it a try. Try piping that in through your speakers.
I'll tell you what, when I listen back to this episode, I will Google those 3 on YouTube, and I will listen to them and see what I think. I probably won't cry. I just, occasionally if I get emotional, I leak awesomeness.
Well,
not crying.
Well, I gotta say, these they're real tear jerkers. They're real tug at your heartstrings. Some of them are, but some of them just put you in a great mood. It's just when the only instruments you have are stomping on the deck and your voice. There's just a spirit to them, and and in some ways, I think that they kind of capture a sense of camaraderie that we all try to find in our clans. Because you think about who's singing them, it's not, historically, it's not just a random bunch of folks, at a baseball game singing a national anthem. It's a crew who were at sea together for God knows how long, facing
months or years,
God knows hardships, and they sang these songs to keep their spirits up, and to sort of build a union, so so they worked as a coherent unit, and to have that camaraderie. And just when you hear the camaraderie of some of these shanties, it sort of brings to mind, to me at least, the camaraderie I have in my clan, and maybe you as well.
Yeah, I've just thought of another segment that you could do based on that camaraderie thing. So if you look in your TNG Discord, it's your food channel, and you see the pictures of the brisket that I just posted. Do you know what we do from camaraderie in KSC sometimes?
Tell me, I don't know.
Aside from the other guys drooling over my meat. And so,
all right. This is a family podcast.
So we do contests in the off season that's similar to, actually, you used to do, what was it when 3 people in TNG, or the trifecta?
Trifecta, yep.
So we do a thing in KSC in the off season. We'll have contests where if it's a 3-man div, you all have to be in the top 4. If it's a 2-man div, in the top 3. You get bonus entries in the contest if it's 2 or 3 people in the div and they're in KS clans, but it's not the same clan, so it kind of encourages interaction between the clans. Mm-hmm. And then we'll do drawings and prizes based on who has the most entries, and random and whatever. So the top prize for this off-season's contest was for me to make my brisket chili and overnight it to the winner. So I smoked a brisket, and after we get done recording this, I'm gonna chop up a bunch of peppers. Like I make real homemade chili, like no chili powder, like everything from scratch. And I'm sending some to Cable Guy because he won the contest. So that's one way we build camaraderie.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, camaraderie over songs, camaraderie over food. That's historic. That's how it works. So I guess we can wrap this segment up. What are we at? 40 minutes? All right. So, a dandy 40-minute segment. Actually, you're supposed to be hosting this one. I don't know why I'm the one saying wrap it up, but...
Well, I was just letting you go. You want the guests to be able to say everything that's on their mind, right?
Well, that's the thing with podcasts is... I've done television and radio, and the time, you get 30 seconds and it's done. So, however, when you get on a format like this, without those hard checks or those time checks, it's you kind of get a little lazy and you're like, well, we've indulged.
I got another thing to say. Here's a good idea.
Maybe the audience doesn't really want to hear it, but you don't have it.
So we'll call this one. Right now. But I do appreciate you inviting me on to do a segment with you. Wish you best on the rest of the podcast as it goes forward. I do think it's nice that it's continuing. I was very glad to hear you speak up and say that you want to continue, and I would be glad to come on again and do segments, and I have some thoughts on some segments, whether it's with you or with other people. So I think that's a great idea for our listeners. If you have a segment, email synpax@hotmail.com with your idea. And please keep listening to the podcast. Please continue to give feedback and suggestions. And if you don't like the segment that we're doing right now, well, it's over. But in general, if there's a segment that Synpax does and it's not your cup of tea, move on to the next one. Because if you listen to the last episode, they were all very different, covered different things. So appreciate you being here with us on our Get to Know World of Warships podcast.
I heard the old man say, leave her, Johnny, leave her. Tomorrow ye will get your pay, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. For the voyage is long and the winds don't blow, and it's time for us to leave her. Oh, the wind was foul and the sea ran high. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. She shipped it green and none went by, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. For the voyage is long and the winds don't blow, and it's time for us to leave her. I hate to sail on this rotten tub. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. No grog allowed and rotten grub, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. For the voyage is long and the winds don't blow, and it's time for us to leave her. We swear by our oath for want of more. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. But now we're through, so we'll go on shore, and it's time for us to leave her. Leave her, Johnny, leave her. Oh, leave her, Johnny, leave her. For the voyage is long and the winds don't blow, and it's time for us to leave her.
Thank you again for joining us on another epic voyage. Down below in the podcast description, you'll find the links mentioned by our guest, as well as the names of the sea shanties you heard on this episode. Please send all complaints to synpax@hotmail.com, and wherever you find this podcast, please subscribe, like, and share. Until next time, fair winds and following seas.
We are all born free, but forever live in chains, and we battle to existence on and on. We'll take whatever comes to be while keeping hopeful melody, and we'll cruise through the darkness until the warmth of dawn. So roll, roll, you bastards, you never can tell. Through water like glass, above a briny hell. So roll and holler, come give her all you can. Or the sea, she will bless us, we'll never see the land. We carry on the burden and we hide our grimace well, for the day will come for us to mutiny. But as long as we survive, our hope and pride they can't deprive, and we'll carry on our melody to sing in harmony. So roll, roll, you bastards, you never can tell. Over water like glass, above a briny hell. So roll and holler, come give her all you can. Or the sea, she will best us, we'll never see the land. So roll, roll, you bastards, you never can tell. The can still escape this barren misery. But even with our shackled wrists, we can fight our way through this, and we'll power all aboard the ship to total liberty. So roll, roll, ever so